So this is a video I've been debating about doing for a while, and I have to get it out here. This is something that's very personal to me, and it kind of gives you a little bit more, I guess, looking inside my day-to-day life and more of my personal life. I don't think I've ever come out here on YouTube by saying that, I am gender fluid. I don't consider myself to be a guy or a man. I am gender fluid. And one of the things that kind of helped me with that, oh man, I could already see so many people being like, unsubscribe, delete, get off of here, bleh, we don't want, bleh. And sure, okay, bye Felicia. And that was part of the reason why I didn't want to do this, because anyway, I'm going to try not to ramble all that much. This is also something that I feel is very personal and I wanted to talk about. And it's something that I wanted to kind of share and shed the light on a little bit. And so I am going to be talking about 2.5 songs from Genesis, which is my favorite band, and their kind of gender fluid, non-binary tracks. And both of these tracks, I will start with a caveat that they still operate very much in the gender binary. Like, it's all about men and women and kind of the crossing between the two. And the two tracks that do that, and kind of how that affected my thinking and how that helped me realize who I was. And the first one is from Nursery Crimes, The Fountain of Salmacis. And I know that I always pronounced it with like Salmaxis or something like those. I looked it up, Salmacis, and the main storyline between that is a male hunter goes off into the wilderness, finds this fountain, drinks from it, and suddenly becomes infused with the feminine aspect, the feminine entity that is within it. The two fuse together, and that's kind of how you get Hermaphrodite. And it's the combination of the man and the woman all in this one storyline. The other one that I want to talk about a little bit is Cinema Show. And you have the character of Father Tiresias, and he tells Romeo and Juliet, the characters that we are introduced to at the beginning of the track, how he was born a man, transitioned into a woman, and now is back as a man, and how he has been, how both experiences have changed him and how that has affected him. This is something that I think Peter Gabriel really likes to do, because also within The Blood of Eden, we also get, the man in the woman and the woman in the man. Now, I do wish that the Peter Gabriel would extend that a little bit more into the fluidity of the experience, how you can have both or neither at the same time, how you can remove yourself from the gender binary and just be, if that doesn't subscribe, like if you don't feel that yourself. But I also get it, because you're dealing with the time period, and that wasn't necessarily the conversation going on. At least Peter Gabriel played with that whole gender binary itself by saying it isn't a fixed thing. These are things that you can go from one to the other, and it's kind of a natural process. The thing that I really enjoy about both of these tracks is that the experience of the gender transition, the experience of having both at the same time or transitioning from one to the other, is pretty much done entirely in music. And a lot of that is being led with Tony Banks's keyboard work. Within The Fountain of Salmacis, you have the big soaring keyboard and guitar kind of duel going back and forth between Steve Hackett and Tony Banks, where the hunter stumbles into the fountain and the fountain wraps him up and merges with him, essentially. And it's that transition from purely man to now woman infused. And all that is done within the musical stylings itself. And then you get those lyrics of, away from me, woman, your hunger's not mine. Both had given everything they had. Essentially, they had given up both of their identities to become this new flesh, this new entity of Hermaphrodites. And how that is like an elevated point of being. This, I have now within me both of these entities, and how do I reconcile the two? You have the anger, you have the hunter of the man with the docile, the life giver of the water. And now you have to kind of reconcile both of those in the same time. The music itself is haunting. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. And I keep coming back to that big crescendo, that big syncopated arpeggio licks within the keyboards and the guitars that just kind of emphasize musically the experience of the gender fluidity of it. If we go over to the cinema show, we are introduced with both the man and the woman in the characters of Romeo and Juliet. Both are excited about this date that they're going to go on. You know, both are hoping to get lucky, essentially. Meeting up with this figure, this Father Tiresias, and him saying to them, for me, there's no mystery. I have crossed between the poles, and this is my experience between the two. You know, what's a man like the sea outraged, and what's a woman but the earth I gave? There is, in fact, more earth than sea. And again, you can pay to one saying that this is just the genitalia. You know, sure, on the external face of the earth, there is more water. You know, the landscape of the earth has, I think, over 70% water, much like on a male's reproductive organs, you know, on the peen, there is more externally. You have the member, you have the testes, you have the scrotum and all that. But the inner workings, much like the earth, there is so much more underneath. There's so much more going on below the surface that is not accounted for, and in fact is a little bit more powerful, you know, and that's where that whole, there is in fact more earth than sea, kind of comes into play. And with Father Tiresias telling us about this, we then move into the second half of the track, which is all instrumental. And you could, once again, draw the one-to-one comparison where it's essentially the combining of the two, the act of intercourse, the whole sexy times, knocking boots, bumping uglies, whatever you want to call it. And that, to me, is one way to interpret the second half of this track. It is the love-making, you know, personification of love between two individuals. It's a little sad that it's very heteronormative, but I'm going to put that aside for a little bit. Within that, there is, with Father Tiresias, this idea that you could go from one to the other and experience one as the other. Within this, you have that big trading of songs and sounds within this. It's mainly led by Tony Banks, so a lot of it is up to interpretation. But with Father Tiresias saying, I have been between both. That is an option for everybody. You know, that if you feel as if you are not one, you could transition into the other. That is mimicked again within the music. And you do feel this trading off of sound, going back and forth with many crescendos, many climaxes within the music itself. And again, it could be all sexual. It could be all in that kind of box. But I think it kind of goes beyond that with the idea of this is a fluid experience. Once again, the woman and the man, and the man and the woman. And both of those tracks really did distill in me that gender isn't fixed, you know, or in some cases it is. But like, it's not in that binary, you know, just because somebody slapped you on the ass and called you one thing when you were a kid, when you were first popped out, doesn't mean that is what you are. You know, you could be like Father Tiresias and transition into the other. You could be like Hermaphrodite and be a bit of both. You know, it opens up that door. And this was one of the first times when I was a teenager listening to a lot of this and being like, oh man, I had never distilled it like this, you know, because I had other things, and maybe one day I'll make a video about all the media that helped me realize who I was. But this was the first time that, you know, my favorite band was singing about this. And it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg, right? Was this band my favorite band because they weren't afraid to talk about and sing music and produce songs that had and dealt with this kind of stuff? Or did I like it, you know, was it my favorite band? And then I just loved them more because they were doing things like that. A little bit of a chicken and egg in that sense. But again, it just deepened my appreciation and my love for both of these tracks. We get a little bit of a sprinkling on Supper's Ready from Foxtrot, where you have the transformation where mom to dad and dad to mom, you know, dad to the office, mom to the washing, mom to the washing. So there's a little bit of a play within that, but I don't feel as if they really explore it all that much. So it's more of just like a little aside. Yeah, those are my rambling thoughts about this. This was a video that I've been wanting to make for a while, but I didn't quite know how to put it out, and I thought the best way, instead of trying to script it and it being like an hour and a half long, I'm just going to come down and say what I think, speak from the heart, and just put it out there. Again, maybe this will help you. It definitely helped me, and it made me recontextualize and rethink a lot of my own identity. So there you go. There you go. This is also a little bit of a coming out video. Just surprise. For those of you that don't follow me on social media, I expect to see a lot of subscribers leave. Nah, sure. That's okay. Again, if you can't accept me for who I am, I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. So, nah. There's me talking about my favorite band and two of my favorite songs from the band for far too long. So what did you guys think about this? And what do you guys think about kind of tracks and whatnot that play with gender? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. I'm not going to ask if you loved it or you hated it, because honestly, don't want to know if you hated it. I already get enough hate from a lot of different people. I don't want to add flame to the fire. But thank you all so much for watching. This was a little bit of a different one for me, and I hope some person watches it and it's not just going out there into the ether. Yeah, this was an overly long ramble, so I'm just going to cut it there. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.